I'm so excited for our second workshop. We are here to talk about when is the right time to pursue a graduate degree. I mean, you are all professionals in your careers. You are all potentially thinking about it or are already in a graduate degree, or maybe you're considering pursuing an additional graduate degree if you've already got one. This is an extremely pertinent and relevant topic for anybody who's thought about more education. This workshop is for you. I'm really excited for you to experience our guest speaker this evening. It's going to be really insightful, very data-driven. It's going to have a lot of facts and figures that will hopefully help you make the most educated decision about what makes the most sense for you after, I guess, this workshop this evening. So, by the way, my name is Garrett Mentee. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion, and really, you've already started meeting with your mentor. That is awesome. Hopefully, you've already set up your first meeting. Maybe you've even already set up your second meeting. If that's the case, that's amazing news. But the focus for this workshop is how can you be intentional about really taking steps forward for yourself professionally. Now, I know that these workshops are on a wide array of topics. Obviously, our first workshop was on how to transition into a managerial role. This workshop's about determining whether or not it's worth it to pursue a graduate degree. But I really want to challenge you that when you're in your mentor meetings, that you are customizing it to your experience for what you want to accomplish with your own career. Because I recognize that some of these workshops are more relevant to you than others, and that's, by the way, completely okay. We bring in really amazing world-class guest speakers to come in and be our guests for these workshops, and that's fantastic. And the ideal goal is that all of them are relevant to you, but I recognize that it varies. And some workshops are going to be more relevant to some people than other people. But what I want you to recognize is that even in this workshop, even if you feel like it's not the most relevant to you, that there's a lot of nuggets. There's a lot of topics that we talk about with our guest speaker that I believe can apply to a lot of situations that you may face in your life. So I'm really excited to get started. Now, one thing that I really want to focus in on, and this is something we talked about last time in our workshop, and that is understanding your strategy, your story, and your state. Those are the three keys to being successful in this program. The most important one, that being state. So physically, where are you? What is going on in your world? Are you having a bad day? Are you having a stressful day? Are you having a difficult time with your significant other? Did your dog just die? I don't care what is going on with your world, no matter how stressful, no matter how mad, no matter how angry, no matter how bad, anything is going on in your world, you can change your state in a matter of seconds because your emotions drive your emotions. So what I want you to do right now to get yourself ready for this workshop is I want you to stand up and I want you to shake it out. I want you to shimmy it loose. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah! Just let it loose, let it out, let it go. Because what you're doing is you're letting blood flow to your brain. You're releasing endorphins in your brain. You're getting yourself into a state conducive for receiving information. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when you sit down for too long, you have diminishing returns on your mental investment. Your likelihood of retaining that information is significantly minimized. So I want to challenge you to get up, shake it out, let it loose, get your blood flowing, because when your blood's flowing to your brain, your likelihood of actually remembering this information is significantly higher. Now, when you're going into your mentor relationship, when you're meeting with your mentor, if you can get your blood flowing before those mentor meetings, you're much more likely to retain the information your mentor has to say for you and to you. But if you don't get yourself into a state ready for this mentor relationship, your likelihood of making the most out of that experience diminishes. So I want you to get yourself into a state. Now, the next key is your story. What is the story you tell yourself? Why will you be successful? I'd love to know it. In fact, actually, if you could, post in the comment section. Why are you going to be successful? I mean, if in your mind you think, hey, I'm cool with mediocre, I'm cool with just settling, this program is not for you. I can tell you that right now. If you're thinking to yourself, hey, I want to settle, I just want to kind of like not really aspire for too much, you wouldn't be in this mentor program. So what I'm here to tell you is shoot for the stars. Have big, crazy, hairy, audacious goals. And by the way, don't let anybody else judge you for your goal because your goals are your own. So what is audacious to you may not be audacious to somebody else. And what is audacious to somebody else may not be audacious to you, but that is okay. It's not for you to judge. It is for you to make strides for yourself. Because at the end of the day, this program is about personal growth and confidence, helping you put yourself into the best position for you to succeed. So if you can tell yourself a story for why you will be marginally to exemplary, significantly better than where you're at the beginning of this program, that is awesome, and that is where I want you to go. That's where I want you to be. Now, the last part is your strategy. What is the strategy that you're going to do to start putting yourself in the best position to succeed? Now, this program, this workshop specifically, is about when is the right time to pursue a graduate degree. Now, one thing that I strongly encourage you to do, because here's the thing, at the end of the day, your strategies are all about routines, both we think about routines both in the bad sense as well as the good sense. Bad routines are, things that we consider habits. Bad habits, they're bad. But we typically have a negative connotation around habits just because of so many bad habits we've heard about. But there's a lot of things and a lot of beneficial things with good habits. So what are things that you can do on a daily, regular basis that helps you prepare for anything that you want to be better at? That is what I want to focus on. So one strategy that you can implement is implementing a SWOT analysis on a monthly basis of your life, of your career, of your higher education experience, of anything. Doing a SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So if you're currently right now in a job and you're thinking to yourself, I'm contemplating a graduate degree, but I don't really know right now, what you'll want to think about is, what are the strengths of pursuing a graduate degree? What are the weaknesses of pursuing a graduate degree? What are the opportunities of staying in your current role? And what are the threats to leaving your current role for this graduate degree? If you can lay this out for yourself, it will help you on a substantial level towards making the most educated decision for yourself for why you should or should not pursue a graduate degree. Now, our guest speaker this evening is going to talk about the literal specific facts and figures of financially, when does it make sense for you to get a graduate degree, and when does it not make sense for you to get a graduate degree? And so I think you're going to really enjoy what our guest speaker has to say about this, because the insight is unbelievable. I think you're going to really enjoy it. But in terms of the strategies, I want you to do a SWOT analysis to help you prepare for that. The other thing is, I want you to start having more informational interviews beyond just your mentor. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what stage of life you are in. You can have conversations with people. Just because you're not a quote unquote current college student in a collegiate sense, you're still a student of life. You're still a student of professional outcomes. And by being willing to admit that you're still a student, you can take the knowledge of somebody else. You can say, hey, I'm a student. I'm interested in learning more about XYZ field. Would you be willing to have a coffee with me or a conversation with me? That is a great conversation starter for you to learn more about other fields, because at the end of the day, it's not about stagnating. It is about growing. It is about learning. It is about being uncomfortable and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So those are the key points I really want you to take away from our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to jump into our guest speaker. If you've got any questions or comments for our guest speaker, please post them in the comments section. By the way, if you've not connected with me on LinkedIn yet, please do so. We have a LinkedIn community, a Ambition in Motion group where all of us participate in it. We can post our questions. Our entire community can answer them or see them or relate to them. It's a really cool place to be. If you don't have a LinkedIn, absolutely get a LinkedIn. If you do have a LinkedIn, you have not connected with me, I strongly encourage it. I'm so excited to get started, and I'm so excited for you to experience our guest speaker this evening. Welcome to our workshop this evening. We're going to talk about how to determine when is the right time to pursue additional education. This is a really fascinating topic because we're in this crazy time period right now with coronavirus, and I think a lot of us might be thinking to ourselves, like, how do I upskill myself? How do I put myself in the right position to thrive and succeed? And some thoughts might be get additional education. Some thoughts might be to pursue. We've got an incredible guest here to talk about that. Her name is Dr. Tasha Dickerson. Dr. Dickerson is a business owner and CEO, professor, and supply chain guru. Dr. Dickerson has built her skills and network both commercially and academically, and does an incredible job both coaching, training for people. Dr. Dickerson, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So, Tasha, I'd love to get started just by learning a little bit more about you. What are some of the degrees that you have, and why did you decide to pursue some of those degrees in that educational path?
Well, I have my undergraduate degrees in computer information systems. I went back to school to pursue my master's in public administration. And then I got my PhD in business administration. I did a specialization in global operations and supply chain management. And the reason I decided to go back and pursue these degrees after I finished my undergraduate degree, I found myself not being able to find a job after I completed a 4-year degree. And I was told that if you go to college, you will find a job. Well, that wasn't the case for me. When I graduated from college some years ago, I'm not going to say the year, it's going to date me, but when I graduated, what I found was that the program that I studied was obsolete. it was no longer valid. And so no one told me that would happen. And so I found myself actually working in a job in a field that was less than what I thought I would be making with a 4-year degree. And so that is what prompted me to go and get a master's to further my education.
That's really interesting. One, I appreciate you being vulnerable. Two, it makes me ask the question, why? Because I mean, if somebody told you once, like, hey, go get your undergraduate degree, you're going to definitely have a job earning this much money doing this type of work, and then it didn't turn out to be true, I think, at least my logic would tell me, don't get more education. What prompted you to go back and get more education? Why did you determine that it would make more sense to double down?
Because I felt like it was the topic or the profession that I needed to go in that would give me the sense of, you're going to get a job this time around. And so the first time it was computer information systems. I said, okay, well, that's going to be obsolete. I'm not going to do computers again. And so when I went back, I did some research and I said, well, you know what? I like working with the public. I'm going to go into maybe policy. So I majored in public administration. And so I did more research prior to getting this degree. And so what I found was that different positions that I could actually work in with this degree. And that's what made me obtain that degree, because I knew what direction I wanted to go in with using that degree.
Got it. So it was almost like the first round almost gave you the insight of what you didn't want to get to. And the second round with the master's helped you really hone in on, okay, I think this is what I would like to do. This is the path I'd like to go down, and go from there. So how was it in terms of accomplishing that career and that job after getting your master's?
I felt like the first time around, I just took the advice from other people without doing the research myself. And coming out of high school, going into college, that's what I did. I trusted everyone else around me to tell me what I should do, but I didn't do the research myself. Whether when I went to get my master's, I actually put in the work. I actually sat down and researched each particular specific, from the job description, what type of degree they were looking for. I did that. I did so much research prior to me actually going to get that master's degree. And so I felt like I had accomplished that, because once I graduated with that degree, I was working in the field and at the particular agency that I wanted to work in with that degree.
Yeah, that's a really powerful story. I think that's something that a lot of people go through. I think we are conditioned and have been conditioned as a society to believe, oh, go get your education. It's the safe path. It's the smart path. It's what you should be doing. If you don't get your degree, you're going to be a failure. I think these are a lot of things that we've been told, and they're not necessarily true, but we believe them. And so I think it's pretty normal to kind of say, like, oh, everyone told me to go get my undergrad. Go ahead and do it. And it's sometimes maybe not the right path for everybody. So you get your master's degree, and now you're in the job that you're enjoying doing. What motivated you to then go get your PhD? Why make that additional?
So let me tell you the story behind the PhD.
Yeah.
So during this time, I have a son that's in high school, okay? My son is struggling with school. He's really feeling like, Mom, what's the point of actually finishing school, go to college, and I'm not going to use any of this work. I can just take a trade and do what I know I'm good at doing without having to go to college. And so I told my son, I said, I know it's difficult, but if you feel like you can do this, right? If you put your mindset in, I can finish this degree, get my high school diploma, I will go back to school and get my PhD while you're getting your diploma. And so I enrolled in school, went back to get this PhD. And when I finished, my son and I graduated the same year. He came out of high school and I came out with a PhD. So I did that for me and to motivate my son, to show him the importance of, if you put in the hard work, you can finish this. If you change your mindset, you can actually accomplish what you believe you couldn't accomplish. And so that's why I did that.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool story. I love the and ability to put yourself on the same level as your son and go through it with him. I think that's really powerful. But I do want to challenge that thought, because I want to challenge the notion. I want to think right now. I guess what I'd be curious to know is, what, if you don't mind me asking, what is your son doing today? Is he
He's in
pursuing?
college.
Okay, so he's in college.
Yes, he is. He's actually majoring in music management.
Okay. And why did he decide to pursue college instead of working in a trade that he wanted to do before?
So that's interesting. He did. He went to college the first year. He said, Mom, this is not for me. I can't do this. And so he said, I think I need to take off from college and actually find out what it is that I want to do. And I said, I agree. Before you go a step ahead or waste any other money, I want you to figure out what it is that you want to do. And so he started pursuing his music career. He started working. He was doing in and out jobs. And he really was able to save money and propel himself where he needed to be in his music career. When he realized, okay, I've done all of this, what is there for me to do? He couldn't contact the people that he needed to contact or get into programs because he wasn't in school. So he came back to me. He said, you know what, Mom, I've sat out for a year and I realized what I need to do. I'm going to go back to school. And that's what he did. So he did sit out for a year because he didn't think college was for him. He didn't think he needed college in order to get to where he needed to be in his music career. But after sitting out a year, he realized this could help me get to where I need to be and to the next level by utilizing the services that the colleges have for me. And that's why he's there today.
That's a really good story. I like that because I think it shows the, not blindly going to get my college degree, but actually getting my college degree with an intention because it's going to unlock opportunities for the future. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, and one thing he says is there's no such thing as a lack of resources, just a lack of resourcefulness. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I have challenged beliefs around higher education in the sense that it makes me think, even in your son's circumstances or in any circumstances, are there ways for us to get the education we would like to have or the education we need and the connections we need without potentially the expense of the education? And I think that's something that's interesting. It's a new kind of thought process. And I guess what I'd love to learn is, what are your thoughts on that?
I believe it is, but it's difficult. And that's what I believe my son realized it as well. Without being in college and having the resources that the colleges and the career services are there to do for you, he realized he had to do that on his own. And so what he realized is that him reaching out to all of these other people within the music industry, they don't know him personally. He doesn't have anyone to represent him. He doesn't have anything he could fall back on. So he realized this is more difficult than what I thought. If I can utilize the services within the college setting because they're paid to do this for me, then I can get my foot in the door as far as an intern in the music industry, and then I can be known for whatever I did within that industry. But it was because I went to college and was able to get that intern. So he was able to see it both ways. He tried it on his own and he felt like it didn't work. So then he used the resources at school and he feel like he's getting a better return on those resources by going to school. So I can see it both ways depending on what industry that you're trying to get into and what your intentions are. But it's going to be very difficult if you don't have help in whatever industry that's going to be.
Yeah, well, it makes me think, because I know that you're very involved in supply chain, and I know there's a lot of supply chain credentials. It makes you think, in some cases, is it better to go off and get a specialized credential versus going off and getting a degree? Like, I mean, even potentially even in your son's circumstance, like he's going to get his degree in music management, but could there have been a specialized music management program through like a professional musician or a professional agency that he could potentially have gone into and gotten a credential to essentially get him a leg up, even a greater leg up than what a music management college degree could? I guess I'd love to learn, what are your thoughts on that? Have you ever pursued an additional credential within supply chain? I just know that's your area of expertise.
Yes, I have. I've gotten my contracting officer's license. So I've also gotten that in addition to my degree. But for me, I've always felt like if I'm equipped with everything that I need, I'm a better resource for others. And so I don't mind taking other additional classes or additional licenses, whatever I need to better myself. But I know for some people they don't feel that way. It's either or. And as far as my son, we actually looked at other programs within the music industry that he could have taken. For instance, in New York, it was a music school he could have attended and maybe received a certificate or something that said he graduated and had college credits. But he felt like that still wasn't enough, because one thing he did, and what I've taught him, you have to think long term. And so if that music industry that you're in, if that doesn't work for you, what you're going to do after that? And so he always felt like, well, if that doesn't work, I have something to fall back on. And that's why he decided to go to college.
Interesting. I will respectfully, I disagree with that. Will Smith has this saying, he says, any focus on a plan B is a distraction from your plan A. And with that mindset, I think for anybody who's, and obviously I think there's a lot of circumstances that play into this. If you've got a family, if you've got kids, if you've got other people that you need to provide for, you have a certain risk tolerance that you can have compared to other people. And so I recognize that. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have kids, if you don't have a family, if you don't have other people that are relying on you, I think that's the time to be, I don't want to say risky, but like, there's another saying, it says, if you're going to take the island, burn the ships. Don't give yourself a plan to get off this island, take it. If you are in a position where you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to make it in the music industry, no matter what, I don't have a plan B, I don't have a fallback option, you're much more likely to make it in the music industry than somebody who thinks that they've got a fallback. Just because you've got a fire in your belly that you're like, it's either I'm homeless or I'm going to make it. And it's tough. I don't know. That's my personal thoughts on that. But I just respectfully disagree. I think that's just my own just personal difference take on it. But I think, like I said, there's a different circumstances. If you got people you're taking care of, that's a very different circumstance. And so maybe I've got a higher risk tolerance than a lot of people.
Yeah. And I tell my son that, I say, it's only you. But the thing about it is, it's just you risking whatever you choose to do, but you want to do it with your parents' money. It doesn't work like that. My money is not going to fund your risk and all of the things you want to do. That's not how that works either. So if you're not equipped and you're not stable enough to take those risks, then you better have a plan B, C, D, E, F, and G. You have to have that. Because I'm the only one in this position that I can take these risks, because I can fall back on it, because I've worked hard to have a safety nest to do that. And explaining that to him, he didn't understand that. I said, well, when you take off that year and you work and you figure out how you're going to do it, then you let me know how that work out for you. And so that's why he came back with his plan B, because he realized, you know what, Mom, this sounded good. I tried this, but I'm not ready to risk being homeless and actually living in my car in the streets to pursue this. So I better do something else. And that's where he is today.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So you talked about finances a little bit. Let's talk about that. I think for a lot of professionals, maybe we're in our career and we got our undergrad, or maybe we got a master's, or maybe we're in this in-between phase and we're considering to ourselves, is it worth it to pursue an additional degree? How do you weigh the cost benefit of an additional degree? How did you go through that process?
For me, how I weighed that is, do I actually need another degree? For me, when I obtained my PhD, I didn't need to get another degree. In the field that I was in, I was okay with having a master's degree and my certifications in supply chain. I chose to get an extra degree because I wanted to do something outside of supply chain. So for me, obtaining another degree was giving me to increase my marketability. And so I knew I wanted to be a professor. It helps more to obtain a degree as a PhD to become a professor, especially if you want to be a tenured professor. So that's why I decided to do it, in addition to motivating and encouraging my son. But you have to know, if you want to do additional education, what's your reason? What's your why? Is it to be more marketable? Are you changing career professions? Is it something you're trying to increase your salary? What's your why before you actually go to achieve that? What is it that you're doing this for? And you have to explain that out to yourself and know the reasons behind it, instead of just going and get into all this debt to get an extra degree, and then you don't come out with a job and you can't pay it back. You have to be smart about it and understand that.
That's a really interesting insight. I think that makes a lot of sense. I totally agree with that. I think the knowing your why, what I often have seen, unfortunately, is somebody gets, let's say, an undergraduate degree, they're in their job, and they think to themselves, well, if I get my MBA, I'm going to be on a pay bump. But they don't tell anybody this. They go out, get an MBA on their own, then they get that MBA, and their employer's got no idea. And or maybe they get their MBA and they say, hey, I've got my MBA now. Can you start paying me more? And they say, we never asked you to get your MBA. We never talked about this. This was never a conversation we had. And so I think so often we have a lot of assumptions about the compensation we will be able to achieve from an additional degree. And so I think just almost to add on to that whole point that you made of just like, why are you getting this additional degree? Really lining it out like hard strokes. Am I going to, like, do I have written down on paper that I'm going to be earning this much more? And sometimes you'll have companies that'll pay for you to get your MBA or additional education. If that's the case, thumbs up, go for that.
In addition to that too, you want to make sure that your goal in obtaining that extra degree, if you want to get an MBA, is it that you're going to stay in the same position, or you desire to get a promotion? Because I have seen people get a MBA or MPA in the position that they have, and then afterwards they go to management and say, you know what, I have this degree. And so management is saying, okay, but this position doesn't require you to have an advanced degree, so we're not obligated to pay you anymore. So if you're not seeking to get a promotion or move outside of your current position, I would highly suggest doing some research, because you don't want to do this without them knowing, and then you feel like you just wasted your time and money to do that.
That is a great piece of wisdom and insight. I totally agree. I was reading an article from a woman named Emma Kerr. She writes for U.S. News and World Report, and what she was doing was she was doing the research on like the cost-benefit analysis of additional education. And essentially what she said was, add up the total cost of getting this additional education. If your annual salary is less than the total cost of getting that additional education, it is not worth it. So if your annual salary is going to be, $80,000 or $100,000, $80,000 or $100,000 should be your cap for what you can spend on that master's degree. If it is less, great. If it is more, probably reconsider, because you're going to put yourself into a whole lot of debt that is going to be very difficult for you to pay off.
I agree. I have to say that, because you have to think of the cost. Finances is very paramount when you're looking at additional education, and you have to know the direction you're going in with that additional degree. If it's not going to benefit you, then why even go through it? That's what I would suggest to anyone. You have to do your research before actually obtaining and thinking about getting another degree.
So how can I go about getting an unbiased opinion about this insight? I feel like I remember when I was a student, and when I was in college, and when I was in business school, I had professors that said, oh, you should go pursue this thing called a 3-2 MBA, where in 3 years you get your undergrad and in 2 years you get your MBA. But you don't get any business experience in between that, and you really load up your coursework. And I ended up opting not to do that. It also was very expensive to do that. But I'd love to learn. I guess the question I'm asking is, when is the right time to pursue additional education? Like, is it ever appropriate for me to go straight from undergrad to get my master's, or should I try to work a little bit before going to get that master's? I know obviously it's a case-by-case scenario, but I'd love to learn your perspective on that.
Well, I think it's based on that individual and what it is that their responsibilities are. Because as a mother, prior to me, I was pregnant with my son as I finished undergrad. So I had responsibilities going in. So I had to work. Once I had my son, I had to work prior to getting my master's degree. But I would tell anyone who would ask just that question, where do they see it? If you know for sure you want an advanced degree and you already know the field that you want to go in, then I would say if you're going to get your undergrad, go ahead. If you still want to pursue an additional career and you want to do that, get your degree, an advanced degree. Do it right after, simultaneously. So you don't have any distractions. You don't have any responsibilities. It's just you. Go ahead, do your research and go for it. But for those who cannot, it depends on that individual. Some of us, we had to work prior to going and get an advanced degree. So it's just different reasons and different circumstances based on that individual.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I think that makes sense. What are some hidden tips and tricks that you'd suggest people use and leverage when pursuing that additional degree? Like, for example, I've seen some people where they'll go and get the master's degree or get an MBA and they won't talk to anybody. It's like they go to their coursework, they get their degree, and then they go home. And I've seen other people where they will build a business out of almost their entire MBA class because they built a network and built these relationships with these really highly talented people, and they built that connection there. And obviously right now you've got online classes, and so you might not necessarily have the luxury of meeting in person, but are there any tips and tricks that you'd suggest for anybody who's getting a degree that they can essentially leverage that maybe aren't explicitly told to them?
Mm-hmm. Well, from a professor aspect, what I would suggest is actually to getting to know your cohorts, because that's going to be very, very important. When you're going to get an advanced degree, even in undergrad, you meet people, you want to stay connected with those people that you meet, you know, because I'm very, very adamant about building relationships. And so if you are in an advanced degree, you want to get to know the people that you're taking your classes with. Because that person always knows someone else that connect you to the next person. So you want to build upon that. Even now with virtual learning, you can still have side classes where you can meet offline and get to know the people that's in your class, because that's going to be paramount for you once you graduate. You never know who you may have to reach back out to and, hey, I need a job. Hey, I need a reference. We took a class together. Do you mind helping me with this and that? So get to know your professor and get to know the people that's in your class. That's going to help you, not just the degree. You're going to need more than that degree when you're looking to obtain a career after you get that additional degree.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have a preference of online classes versus in-person classes?
It depends on what you're going for, especially if it's business. I feel like experience is the best teacher. So even if you're going for business intro, it's going to teach you the basics, but experience is going to teach you what you actually need to know hands-on. So I was always the one who went to school and worked, because I believe in hands-on learning. I can be in a book all day long, but it's not going to teach me and give me the experience that I actually need to be successful. So I was the one who would do both. I couldn't just take the classes and not build relationships and not try to work at the same time. So that worked for me. And I would tell anyone, do what works for you.
I love that. So let's recap some keys here. I think one thing that's really big, map out what you'd like to accomplish and where you'd like to be. I think that's something that was a really big insight on your part, was like you got your undergraduate degree because everyone said you should go get your undergraduate degree. And by the way, I was guilty of this. I think a lot of people are, just because we've been conditioned to believe this. But if you're currently getting your degree, or if you're contemplating getting an additional degree, map it out. Where do you want to go? Talk to people who are in that position. Get a confirmation that this is the way that you can go, and this is the only way that you can go. If there are additional routes, explore those routes just to make sure that you are on the right path. And if this is the path to go, make sure that you're making an educated decision, which I love, just chatting about all the research you did about getting your master's, and like really when you're like, okay, I'm paying for this. I'm making sure that this is going to get me to where I need to go, because this whole getting a degree and not having a job thing's not going to fly.
And that is so true. I realized that. I was like, okay, I got one degree that I've never used ever, and I'm paying for it. So I'm going to make sure these next degrees that I receive, I'm going to utilize them, because I have to pay it back. So I'm going to make sure it's worth my time and my research. So it has to be something that works for you, and you can actually see that it pays off in the end. You don't want to just jump into something and realize, you know what, I should have done my research. You don't want to do it on the back end. You should have did that in the beginning so you don't pay for it in the end.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, research other credentials, research other
Yes.
things that you could pursue, whether it be in supply chain or music management, or literally, there are credentials for anything that you can pursue. Even being in this mentor programs, I would imagine part of your credentialing, in the sense that you're having a mentor that's helping you get to where you want to be. And that shows a lot about your character and who you are, especially if you're speaking with a future employer saying like, hey, I'm someone that's open to being in a mentoring relationship. That shows a lot about your vulnerability and your drive to learn, especially if you're investing in yourself. So I think that's something that you can absolutely leverage. And then I think the key thing is keeping your network up. When you're meeting with people in your coursework, you've got LinkedIn. Even if they're virtual, you still got LinkedIn. You can stay in touch with them there. You can schedule one-on-ones. You can create group meetings. I think that's so powerful, because if you are not building your network and taking advantage of the really talented people in your coursework, you're not doing it right. There's so many people that are in your coursework that are talented and that are doing really cool things, and having those relationships are critical.
I also agree. When you're looking at or pursuing a higher degree, you're looking at marketing. How are you going to market yourself? And if you're not building those relationships, then who's going to know who you were? Yes, we took a class together, but I don't remember anything about you. So you want to leave that last impression. You always want to say, okay, this was this person, I remember. You leave that impression and let them know, if I ever need to reach out to you, I know that I can do that. And so that's very important. Always remember, you're going in there, okay, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, and you succeed. Always have a plan.
Love that. Great advice, Tasha. This has been really fun. This has been really great. Final question for you. How can our audience learn more about you? How can they connect with you? What books, podcasts, websites, what are ways that our audience can learn more about you and connect with you?
Yes, my website is dickersonmanagement.com. I am on Instagram at Dr. Tasha Dickerson. I'm on LinkedIn at Dr. Tasha Dickerson. I am all over social media. I'm on Google my name and I'm there. I have books that can help you propel in self-discovery, supply chain, all of that. So I'm dickersonmanagement.com. I look forward to it. Reach out to me and I'm always available.
Awesome. This was a great workshop. Everybody, thank you so much for being here this evening. Tasha, thank you so much for being here this evening. This was a great workshop. Everybody have a great rest of your evening, and continue networking with your mentor and continue building that relationship. I'm excited to see you next month. See ya.